My name is Frank, and I used to have a pretty simple life. Every morning I woke up at 6 o'clock, I would put on my work boots, which were always a little bit muddy. I worked in construction and my job was to build houses for other people. It was hard work, but I liked it. After work I would come home to my wife, Sarah. We lived in a small house with a squeaky front door. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had enough. Our life wasn't exciting like in the movies, it was just normal, and I thought normal was okay. Sarah and I had our routines. On Tuesdays we ate tacos for dinner. On Fridays we watched a movie on our old small television. Sometimes the screen would get all fuzzy and I would have to hit the side of it to make the picture clear again. Sarah would laugh every time I did that. We would talk about our day, about the funny things our neighbors did, or about the garden we wanted to plant in the backyard. We had dreams, but they were small dreams, like buying a new couch or going on a vacation to the beach someday. We were a team. Life felt predictable, but in a good way. I knew what to expect each day. I knew my paycheck would come every 2 weeks. I knew Sarah would save a little bit of it for our future. We had arguments sometimes, of course. We would argue about silly things like who forgot to take out the trash or what to watch on TV. But we always made up before we went to sleep. Our problems were small problems, the kind you could solve with a conversation or a hug. Looking back, I realize how peaceful it all was. Our biggest worry was usually about the car breaking down. It was an old car, and it made strange noises sometimes. We would cross our fingers every time we started it. Sarah would say, "One day Frank will get a car that doesn't sound like it's complaining." And I would tell her, just a little longer, we were saving up for it bit by bit. That was our big goal, a new car. It's funny to think about that now. We were happy, I think. We were happy with our small life and our small dreams. We just didn't know it. One Friday after a long week at work, I stopped at a small corner store. I just wanted to buy a soda. The man behind the counter was watching the news. They were talking about the lottery. The jackpot was huge, bigger than ever before. Everyone was talking about it. The man said, "You should buy a ticket, you never know. I usually didn't buy lottery tickets." Sarah always said it was like throwing money away. But that day for some reason I thought, why not? I spent $2 on a ticket with random numbers. I put it in my wallet and forgot all about it. The next day, Saturday, was a lazy day. We did some chores around the house. In the evening, Sarah was reading a book, and I was looking through my wallet. I found the lottery ticket. I remembered the drawing was that night. I turned on the TV to check the numbers, mostly as a joke. I read the first number from my ticket. It matched, then the second number matched, and the third. My heart started beating really fast. Sarah looked up from her book and asked what was wrong. I couldn't speak. All 6 numbers on my ticket matched the numbers on the screen. We just sat there for a minute staring at the TV. Then we stared at the ticket, then we stared at each other. "Is this real?" Sarah whispered. I checked the numbers again. And again. It was real. We had won $100 million. I started laughing, and then Sarah started laughing. We were jumping up and down in our small living room. We felt like we were in a dream. We couldn't believe it. $100 million. It was a number so big that I couldn't even imagine it. Our lives were about to change forever. That night we couldn't sleep. We just talked and talked. We made so many plans. We would buy a new house, a big one. We would buy a new car, a fancy one. We would travel the world. We would help our families. Sarah said she wanted to quit her job at the grocery store. I said I would quit my construction job. No more waking up early. No more muddy boots. Everything was going to be different. Everything was going to be better. We were so excited. We thought all our problems were solved forever. The money arrived a few weeks later. Suddenly, we were rich. The first thing we did was buy a huge new house. It was a mansion with a swimming pool and a big garage for all our new cars. We bought 5 cars. I didn't even know why we needed 5 cars, but we bought them anyway. We bought expensive clothes, fancy watches, and the biggest television I'd ever seen. Our small, quiet life was gone. Now, our life was loud and shiny. We threw big parties every weekend. People we didn't even know came to our house to eat our food and swim in our pool. At first it was fun. It felt like we were living in a movie. But soon, things started to feel strange. I didn't have a job to go to anymore. I woke up every day with nothing to do. I would just walk around our big, empty house. Sarah was busy shopping and planning parties. We didn't have our old routines anymore. There were no more Taco Tuesdays. We didn't watch movies together on the couch. We hired a chef, so we didn't even cook together. We were living in the same house, but it felt like we were miles apart from each other. The money changed Sarah. She started hanging out with new rich friends. They would talk about things I didn't understand, like fashion designers and expensive vacations. She started to say I was embarrassing. She didn't like my old t-shirts or the way I talked. She wanted me to be more sophisticated. I tried, but it just wasn't me. I missed our old life. I missed talking to her about simple things. Now all our conversations were about money. What to buy next, where to invest, who to impress. It was exhausting. The arguments started. But these were not small arguments like before. They were big and loud. We would yell at each other in our giant living room, and the words would echo. Sarah said I wasn't trying hard enough to fit into our new life. I told her I didn't like our new life. I wanted our old life back. She looked at me like I was crazy. Why would you want to go back to being poor? She asked. The money that was supposed to bring us happiness was tearing us apart. It was like a wall between us, and it was getting taller every day. The fighting got worse. We stopped talking completely. We were just two strangers living in a big fancy house. One day I came home and Sarah was there with a lawyer. She told me she wanted a divorce. I was shocked, but maybe I wasn't surprised. We had lost each other a long time ago. The lawyer explained that Sarah wanted half of everything, but it was more complicated than that. She had smart lawyers who argued that I was irresponsible with the money and that she should manage it. They made it sound like I was the problem. The divorce was a nightmare. We spent months fighting in court. It wasn't about love or our memories anymore, it was all about the money. The lawyers were like sharks. They took our happy past and turned it into a sad story for the judge. Sarah said things about me that weren't true. I said things about her. It was ugly. In the end, the judge decided in her favor. Because of some bad investments I made and the way the lawyers presented the case, she got almost everything. The house, the cars, and most of the money in the bank. After the divorce, I was left with almost nothing. I had to sell the few things I had left. I moved into a small apartment even smaller than our first house. All the millions of dollars were gone. All the fancy things were gone. And Sarah was gone. I was alone. I found a new job in construction, back to building houses. My hands got rough again and my boots got muddy. I was back where I started, but this time I had nothing. I had lost my wife, my home, and all that money. It was a very high price to pay for a $2 lottery ticket. Now, I have a lot of time to think. I think about my old life with Sarah, before the ticket. We didn't have much, but we had each other. We were a team. The money didn't make us happy. It just showed us that we weren't as strong as we thought. It broke us. I learned that money can buy a big house, but it can't buy a home. It can buy a fancy car, but it can't take you to a happy place. I learned that the most valuable things in life, love, friendship, and peace, don't have a price tag. And sometimes, winning is the worst thing that can happen to you.